He cheated. His mom blamed me. They kicked me out and told me to survive on my own. So I did. I survived, thrived, and rebuilt everything. Now that he's helpless and alone, they want me back as his caretaker. I said no. I chose myself. Hi Reddit. I'm Emma. I'm 33. I'm a single mom of 2, and I thought I'd finally left the past behind me. But last week, it showed up again, right outside my daughter's school. My ex-mother-in-law was waiting at the gate. She looked older, thinner, tired in a way I'd never seen before. As soon as she saw me, she grabbed my hand, tears already running down her face. "Please, Emma," she said. "Please come back. Daniel needs you. He's not the same anymore. He's sick. If you come home and take care of him, I'll sign over everything. The house, the company. Just come back." She said it loudly, deliberately, like she wanted my daughter to hear. Like dangling the promise of money and a complete family would sway me. But I just stared at her for a long second. Then I shook my head gently and walked away. I've thought about that moment 100 times since. About how surreal it was to hear her beg. The same woman who once told me to get out of her house and never come back. The same woman who stood by while her son lied to me, cheated on me, and let me break down alone. You're probably wondering why it got that bad, or how it even started. So here it is. No frills, no sugarcoating. Daniel and I met when I was 19. I was fresh out of community college with a degree in accounting. He was 24, already helping run his family's construction business. Handsome, confident, charming as hell. We met through a mutual friend and clicked right away. He made me feel special, like he saw things in me I didn't even see in myself. He'd pick me up after work with coffee, write little notes, and leave them in my purse. He was attentive, protective, kind. We dated for 3 years. He proposed on my 22nd birthday. And honestly, I was thrilled. His parents seemed reserved at first, especially his mom, Linda. She was always polite but cold. I thought maybe she was just formal. Turns out, she was judging me from the beginning. The clothes I wore, where I came from, the fact that my parents were middle class and divorced. She never said anything outright, but I always felt like I was being measured against some invisible bar. Still, we got married. It was a beautiful ceremony, and I felt like the luckiest girl alive. After the wedding, I started helping Daniel with the business, doing the books, organizing invoices, keeping the finances on track. I was good at it, and he made sure I knew it. He used to say, "I couldn't run this place without you," and I believed him. We were a team. When I got pregnant with our first child, a boy, Daniel was ecstatic. He'd read parenting books, stayed up late building the crib himself, even practiced diaper changes on a teddy bear. He was there for every appointment, every kick, every moment. The first few years of our marriage were the best of my life. But things started to shift after our second child, a girl, was born. 4 years later, the pregnancy was harder. I was more tired, more emotional. My body didn't bounce back the same. I felt like I was in survival mode, breastfeeding, cooking, cleaning, barely sleeping. I told Daniel I couldn't keep working full-time for the business while taking care of the kids. He said it was okay, that I should take a break and focus on recovering and being a mom. I was grateful, at first. But that's when Linda started showing her true colors. Suddenly, I was lazy, useless, a freeloader. She'd make little comments at dinner like, "I guess you're not working anymore, huh? Must be nice to just sit around all day." Or when the baby would cry, "You sure you know what you're doing?" She's always fussing. And the worst part? She never offered help. Not once did she offer to hold the baby so I could take a shower. If I made dinner and it wasn't perfect, she'd push her plate away or just throw it in the trash. I remember one night making a big pot of stew, and she walked in, took a bite, said it was too salty, and dumped the whole thing down the sink while I stood there holding our crying baby. Daniel? He said nothing. He'd come home late, claim he was tired, and just scroll through his phone while I struggled to rock both kids to sleep. When I told him I felt overwhelmed, he sighed and said, "Emma, I'm working 60 hours a week. You think I'm not exhausted too?" I felt myself slipping into this fog, like I was invisible, like no matter what I did, it wasn't enough. I thought about going to my mom's house for a few days, just to get some air, to sleep. But when I mentioned it, Linda snapped. "You married into this family. That means you stay here. You don't just run back to mommy every time things get hard." I didn't go. I stayed. For the kids. For the hope that maybe things would go back to the way they were. They didn't. Things got worse the year our daughter turned 2. Daniel told me he needed to bring in another accountant for the business since I was still focused on the kids. I didn't object. I was barely sleeping and could hardly keep up with the laundry, let alone spreadsheets. That's when Chloe came in. She was everything I wasn't at the time. Well-dressed, energetic, carefree, no spit up on her blouse or dark circles under her eyes. She wasn't even subtle about flirting with Daniel. At first I told myself I was just being insecure. But then he started mentioning her too often, laughing at her jokes, staying later at work, putting passwords on his phone, something he'd never done before. One night, I saw a message pop up when he forgot to close his laptop. Miss you already. Last night was amazing. My stomach dropped. When I confronted him, he didn't even bother lying. He just shrugged and said, "We're not working anymore, Emma. We're just surviving." I wanted to scream. I wanted to throw something. But instead, I went to Linda. I thought, maybe she'd be as devastated as I was. She wasn't. Men don't cheat for no reason, she said. Maybe if you took better care of yourself. Maybe if you were more presentable. He's a man, Emma. What did you expect? It was like being slapped across the face, and a week later, she made her move. She called me into her home office, slid a manila envelope across the desk and said, "These are the divorce papers. You've had your chance. Daniel deserves someone who contributes. You can either take a cash settlement and leave the kids with us, or walk out with nothing. Just the clothes on your back and your crying babies." I begged. Not for Daniel, I was done with him, but for my kids. She didn't flinch. So I packed what I could into 2 bags, grabbed my son's favorite dinosaur plushie, carried my daughter in one arm and held my son's hand with the other. And I walked away from the house I had once helped build, the business I helped grow, the life I thought would last forever. We stayed in a friend's basement for 2 months. It was cramped, damp, and smelled like mildew, but it was safe. The kids had a mattress. I had a pillow on the floor. I worked during the day at a local fabric store, then did freelance accounting at night. I sewed baby clothes and sold them on Etsy. I skipped meals so my kids could eat better. I cried in silence when they were asleep. But we made it. Slowly, things got better. I saved enough to rent a small 2-bedroom apartment, got more clients, learned how to stretch a dollar like a magician. A year later, I was able to buy a little townhouse, old but ours. The kids thrived. They laughed again. My daughter started drawing pictures of mommy and me that didn't include a man in the frame. It was just us. And that was enough. For the first time in years, I felt free. No one yelling, no one criticizing my cooking, no one telling me I wasn't enough. And then last week happened. Linda, the woman who told me I was worthless, showed up outside my daughter's school. Her hair was grayer, her eyes sunken, she looked smaller somehow. Daniel, she said, had a massive stroke. Chloe had cleaned out his accounts, cheated on him, and tried to extort money from the company. When he confronted her, she left, taking most of the money with her. The business collapsed. He's bedridden now. Can't move one side of his body, needs round-the-clock care. Linda begged me to come back. "We'll give you the house, the business, everything. Just please, take care of him." She said it like an offer. But I know better. She didn't want me. She wanted a caretaker, a maid, a wife replacement, someone to clean up the mess they made. And for a brief moment, I did feel a flicker of something. Not love. Not pity. Maybe sadness for what could have been. For the man I once thought Daniel was. For the family we never really had. But then I looked at my daughter, standing beside me, and I said, "No. I've already left once. I'm not walking back into the fire. I don't hate Daniel, I don't even hate Linda, but I love my kids, and I finally love myself again. That's not something I'm willing to give up, not for anyone."
She says I'm overreacting. I say I'm just tired of watching other men touch the woman I love. Hi Reddit, I'm 27. My girlfriend Lily 25 and I have been together for almost a year now. We work in the same department at the same company, and even though we never made it official in the office, people started figuring it out pretty early. A few tipsy work outings made it pretty obvious. Her hanging off my shoulder, like we were the leads in a cheesy rom-com, didn't help much. At first, I loved that about her. She's energetic, open, fun. The kind of person who lights up a room and makes strangers feel like they've known her for years. Being with someone like that made me feel lucky. Like I was the guy who'd caught the sunshine. But you know how sometimes the thing that draws you to someone eventually becomes the thing that drives you away? That's what's been happening. It started with small things. The way she'd let our coworkers casually touch her, like a hand on the waist or a playful shoulder bump. I tried to brush it off. Maybe I was just being possessive. Maybe I was insecure, so I kept my mouth shut. But one day, I saw one of the sales guys, let's call him Chris, push her up against the wall during some banter, leaning over her with a grin like they were filming a Netflix flirt scene. She laughed. No discomfort. Just went along with it. Then, a few minutes later, he slapped her ass while walking past. I froze. She didn't even flinch. Just smiled. When I asked her about it later, she said, "Oh, come on, we all joke around like that. Don't be dramatic." And honestly, I felt like the crazy one. Like I was being old-fashioned or territorial for thinking maybe, just maybe, people shouldn't treat their coworker girlfriend like a party toy. So I let it slide. Then came the team retreat. We had one of those ridiculous punishment games where the losing team had to do some embarrassing challenge. Lily's team lost. The forfeit? One of the guys from production, a guy twice my size, loud and hyper, ran over and picked her up, spinning her around like she was a prize he just won at the fair. She screamed like she was on a roller coaster, laughing, loving it. I stood there holding a bottle of water, my face slowly going numb. I watched as this guy manhandled the woman I'm supposed to call mine while she acted like it was the best moment of the day. When he put her down, I walked up to her and asked, "You having fun?" She grinned. "Yeah. Haven't felt that light in forever." I looked her in the eye and said, "You like flying, huh? Maybe next time I'll throw you off a boat." She rolled her eyes and said, "Mike, are you seriously jealous again?" Yeah, I was. And not because I'm insecure, but because I was starting to feel like I was the only one in this relationship who saw a problem with random dudes grabbing and lifting and touching my girlfriend like it was their right. Still, I didn't walk away. I thought, maybe I'm too sensitive, maybe she just sees the world differently. I can work with that, right? Then came the final straw, another company trip. After dinner, Lily and her group wanted to hit a club. I don't like clubs, too loud, too sweaty, but she wanted me there, so I came. At one point, while we were sitting and catching our breath, a random guy walked up. He looked at Lily, smiled, and then reached over and slid her jacket off her shoulders, saying, "Why you hiding such a pretty face? Take this off, loosen up." She didn't stop him, didn't flinch, didn't even look uncomfortable. I stood up immediately, grabbed the guy by the wrist, twisted it hard, and pushed him back. He yelped. Her friends screamed. Lily pulled my arm back, shocked. I said to him, "You like touching people who aren't yours? Cool. How about I undress your girlfriend next time and see if you laugh?" He backed off, but in my head, something cracked. Later, I turned to Lily and said, "Still think I'm overreacting? That was a complete stranger, and you let him take your jacket off in front of me." She looked away. Didn't say a word. That night, we didn't talk on the way back. She was on her phone, probably messaging her friends. I just stared out the window, wondering why I felt like a stranger in my own relationship. The next day, she acted like nothing happened, laughing with coworkers, joking with the same people who crossed the line before. And I realized she really didn't get it. Or worse, didn't care. That evening, when I dropped her off, she hugged me like always. But this time, I didn't hug back. I said, "Lily, I love you. But I can't love someone who lets everyone else touch her like she doesn't belong to anything. I'm not saying I own you, but if you don't respect your own boundaries, how can I keep pretending this is okay? I think we need to stop here." She just stared at me. No tears, no shouting, just confusion. And maybe that's the clearest sign this was never going to work. So Reddit, I don't know. Am I being too harsh? Am I one of those guys who can't handle a confident woman? Or am I just someone who wants to feel like the person he loves wouldn't let anyone else treat her like that? Thanks for listening.